right? About a year after it came out in 2021, and everybody started running. We need AI, just get it. What are we going to get? We're going to get ChatGPT. We're going to get Copilot. We're going to get Gemini. Doesn't matter. Just get it. Give everybody access. And then everybody starts to say, well, wait a minute. We got to stand behind the pole. And we're standing behind this pole. And, this is the CTO and the director of innovation steps up and says, well, we have to think about our information. We have to think about our security. We have to think about what is it that we're doing. And so once we do that, we kind of eventually get home safe, but everybody's using it. We start measuring tokens. How many tokens? And then we start balancing salary. How many tokens versus how much salary are we paying out, right? But then we get home and we start to realize that the same way I thought I have to entertain myself differently. I have to have a whole new paradigm in terms of how I entertain myself, how I select where I go. As a business, you have to recognize that this is something different. So if you're a business, if you're an educational institution, if you're an individual, if you're a parent, you have to realize that we're going to have to entertain ourselves differently. And what do I mean by that? Well, once upon a time, cognitive intelligence was scarce, and we went through an entire process about how to categorize that scarcity. We made things that were scarce. We thought about it and we put kids through a stage gate, right? We call it school. This was a brilliant strategy. And we started to categorize A, B, C, D. We knew exactly who was A and B and who was C and D and where they would go. We gave them 195 to 196 days to figure it out. And we gave them a series of stage gates, exams, assessments to move forward. And at the end of grade 12 or grade 13, you'd go into a first year of some kind of post-secondary. So if you got the A's, you would go into a university. If you got the C's, you would go into some kind of community college. And if you got the D's, you'd find some kind of vocational training. And the idea was that we knew where all of it was based on the scarcity. Now we have cognitive abundance. This is the pole. We are standing at the pole. We have cognitive abundance. I don't need to know. I don't need the information to know, or do I? What I do need is a question. I do need to have some semblance of discernment. I don't need to know all the information. I need to be able to check, is this coherent? One, and is there correspondence? Two, and the last piece that AI is still trying to figure out is the lived experience. Will this work? What is the invisible components that I can't see? The relationships between people, the power mapping, the myelin sheath, if you will. What is that piece that I can't see to help something be really successful? Right? Alex Karp, who is the CEO of Palantir, once said, your business is not in your PowerPoint. And it took me a while to understand what he meant. And you know what I'm talking about. When you have a business, you see a perfect PowerPoint. The perfect PowerPoint is not enough. You still have to figure out who is the team. How do you put the team together? Who can lead the team? Who can influence the team? Who's going to throw the team off? What are the different skill sets that we're going to have? What is the lived experience that's not written down? The information that's in your head. The ability to look at somebody with a twinkle and a smile. The ability to motivate people either by pull or by push. The ability to have deep experience in a particular field that is not written down anywhere. How do we do that? This is, if I was speaking to a room of teachers, I would say it's kind of like going to teachers' college. You go in and you see all the different things, all the techniques and everything, but you don't see the first 90 days. And those first 90 days, boy, those are really, really important. That whole setup, the relationship building, the power dynamics, understanding who's going to create challenges, who's going to be a spark, who's curious, getting to know all the different personalities. Where do I sit them? How do I put them together? How do they trust me? How do I convey to them that they trust me? Am I going to be a referent teacher where I'm very entertaining, or am I going to be a serious teacher where I'm very stern and they're afraid? All of these things happen in the first 90 days. And when I was in Teachers College, these aren't things that are taught. Very similarly, this conveys across into business, into industry, where there's a certain element of intellectual property that is not written down. It's a certain uncertain thing, something that needs to be observed, something that needs to be experienced. This is the last piece. But here we are, standing at that pole. Now we've gone home and we're reflecting. How will I entertain myself in the future? How will I conduct the economy of life in the future? So as a company, your challenge is, am I trading tokens for humans? Am I going to miss that invisible myelin sheath, that small intellectual property that sits at the very top? Will that be lost if I drop all the humans? How do I squeeze that into the top 20%? And what happens to the other 80%? If 80% of every single organization, every single company is seen as redundant, that is a massive amount of cognitive surplus. Listen, if AI saved 2 hours for each person across planet Earth, we're looking at hundreds of millions of hours of cognitive surplus sitting on the sideline. Now, we're going to find ourselves in a superposition, just like at the end of that party. And that superposition is we have two very distinct futures that are happening at the same time. Do we take a future where the future gets worse than the present? Universal basic income? Or do we take a future where the future gets better than the present? Universal basic services, universal basic assets, cognitive surplus in metacognition, being able to see it, being able to organize it, being able to execute on it, things that are just good for their own sake, the beauty, the invisible components that we can't see. This is the challenge of our time. This is us sitting in the living room, thinking, how will I entertain myself in the future? Our question is, what will be the economy of life if we have cognitive abundance and not cognitive scarcity? We have to sit down and design a world assisted and enhanced by AI from scratch, and not just AI the tool, but cognitive abundance versus cognitive scarcity. This is the fundamental, foundational question that we must wrangle with. And the organizations, individuals, companies that solve for this first will survive and thrive through the next stage and will have a hand in co-creating what comes next. Our job is to co-create something better. Technology itself, we design it over and over to make our life better, not to make our life worse. That's the intention. This is no different. So how do we shape a better tomorrow now?